The vaccine campaign will be known as the biggest crime ever committed on humanity. Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Now, my first guest this hour is a return visitor. We were interrupted last time. We couldn't secure a link. I don't want to say that it was necessarily the CIA, but when you hear what this man has got to offer, what he's got to say about a current state of affairs in the West, I would not be surprised. It's Joachim Hagopian. He is a West Point graduate, former Army officer, and author of Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down. After the military, Joachim earned a master's degree in clinical psychology and worked as a licensed therapist. As an independent journalist for over 8 years, Joachim has written hundreds of articles for many news sites like Global Research, LouRockwell.com, and currently JamesHFetzer.org. Joachim, welcome to the show.
Good to be back, Damien.
Good to have you, my friend. Now, we'll just start, the International Criminal Court in The Hague has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin for war crimes. How did they come to that realization?
Because they're behind the agenda to get rid of Putin as the leader of the multi-world movement.
Okay, so it's not going to. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing it's since COVID, it's been an X-ray, hasn't there, on the institutions of state, and we can sort of see their overt power plays like maybe we couldn't before.
Yeah, definitely. It's overreach on the part of the cabal establishment. We found out that the whole pandemic is fake, but the kill shots really are genocide. So, this is a big wake up and many normies now are finally starting to get it. Those of us who have been kind of following reality for a long time, it became immediately visible and discernible to us that it was a whole agenda to basically kill off the human race. They've been talking about depopulation for centuries, basically, ever since Malthus a few centuries ago. The earth can't support the population. Let's get rid of them. So that's been their agenda, and it has changed. But they found out that they could only do a few more boosters and no one's showing up anymore. Granted, they killed a whole bunch, millions around the world, and millions are going to still fall in the next year or two. But the good news is they're not going back for boosters anymore. They can't even pay people to get them anymore. So it's finally sunk into the masses now. And the genocide part is right behind it. That will sink in too. They will realize that all of our national leaders, all of the medical establishment, all of these so-called good guys, Bill Gates and all the rest of them, they're evil, they're satanic, and they want us dead. And so they are our enemy. They are the human race enemy. So in order for us to survive their genocide, we must basically just apply and enforce all the laws that they've broken, killing humanity. We must enforce them and have truth prevail and justice prevail so that we remove them from power. And we're talking about the Rothschild banking cartel that is now in a basically controlled demolition crisis on purpose. They planned this for many years as part of their reset. But they weren't counting on the fact that their revenue from child sex trafficking and drug trafficking, that whole cabal, that they have generated most of their dark income, all of their dark income comes from those sources, organized crime. But that is the bulk of what they have. The big banks even are insolvent at this point. So everything is riding on Ukraine. That's why all the countries have been pressured, coerced to give up all their stockpiles of weapons, most of which end up on the black market. They don't even reach the battlefield, but their source revenue major has been suspended, interrupted by the special military operation of Vladimir Putin.
So what's the significance then of Ukraine? What's the significance of that particular country?
Well, they have been the devil's playground for not just even since 2014 when the U.S. did the illegal coup and put the neo-Nazis in. No, they have been, ever since 1991, since they became independent, Russia, Soviet Union gave up, all the outer states and all the outer perimeter part of Soviet Union became independent suddenly in 1991. And of course, if you recall, the 90s decade is one of the very worst, even worse than under communism, because the Western sharks, the oligarch sharks, moved in, raped and pillaged Russia, and they had their boy, Yeltsin, the alcoholic, in there. But what they did not read properly, they groomed through Henry Kissinger and the City of London, they groomed Vladimir Putin. They were not, and he's straight out of the KGB at that point. So they figured they had their next boy, a young man compared to Yeltsin. And so they got rid of Yeltsin because, he was just too far gone with his alcoholism. And they brought in Putin, and he played the game. He's a chessboard master. He knows what he's doing. And he's restrained himself so remarkably against all the provocation of aggression for World War III, for nuclear war, for everything they've been getting at this guy, demonizing him ever since basically the early 2000s when he started realizing, well, basically the world started realizing, including the ones that control the world, that he's a nationalist. He's not a globalist. He is wanting to protect his homeland and his people. And that is a big threat to the control mechanism of this world. They need to get rid of him. That's why everything is riding on Ukraine. We know that this guy has a much better and bigger army. The Ukraine army has been defeated, depleted. It's done. They're taking kids 14, 15 years old now, throwing them in a uniform, and their lifespan on the battlefield is 2 to 4 hours. It's just total insanity. But because it's insanity, because the rulers of this world, Rothschild, Rockefeller, etc., know that the jig is up, that the people are finding out all about their crimes against humanity like they've never known before. They managed the deception and the divide and conquer, where they pit groups against each other, and they have managed to retain their control through the lies. But the lies the people are seeing through, and they are seriously threatened, not only losing their revenue in Ukraine, where so much of the organized crime activities have it's the hub of the whole world for organized crime activity. And of course, it's the East-West gateway for the drug trafficking of the earth. So this is a big one. Once Ukraine goes down, and I haven't always totally believed that, he's a good guy, Putin is a good guy, but we will find out if he's a good guy when Zelensky gets out and they put in a neutral government in Ukraine. That's all they were wanting and asking for all along, was just neutrality on their border. After all, in 1962, Kennedy, confronted Khrushchev, and they took out the missiles from Cuba. Well, Russia just wants the same respect for national autonomy and national security. That's all they've ever asked for. But they forced the hand.
That's not what Xi Jinping is saying, is it? That's not what Xi Jinping is saying, is it? He's saying there's going to be a change like we haven't seen for 100 years. There's going to be a change in the actual globalist order itself.
Well, that's what's
happening. The end of Western hegemony.
Yeah. I mean, they're done having the U.S. bully, and unfortunately, the U.S. has just been a bully for the elites. That's all it's been. It was the American century because the elites were able to control. After they had 400 or 500 years with the British Empire, Then it traded to America. Well, now they're giving it up. And the multipolar world consists of China and Russia and all those global South nations. We're talking Brazil, we're talking Saudi Arabia, we're talking Iran. A lot of regional powers are now joining them. It's over for Europe and America.
So what does that mean for the West, though? Like, if the West does collapse, what does that mean for us, the citizens of the West, the sons and daughters of the West? Shouldn't we be concerned about that?
Yes, of course. Unfortunately, Americans, Canadians, Australians, and all the Europeans, we will suffer. The people will suffer for the sins of our evil leaders that are puppets to the elite cabal. We will suffer. However, on the other side, yes, many casualties, but on the other side is the fight for the truth and justice, and the evil ones that have been doing it to us for so long are going to eventually pay for their crimes. They will have military tribunals. They will be put to death, and their power will be removed. And from the ashes, we will have to build a system. Now, here's the key.
Well, Kim, before you tell me that, I'll just go to a quick break, and then we'll be back for you to tell us exactly what the key is. You're listening to TNT Radio.
TNT Radio News.
Are you ready for some awesome news? 1, 2, 3, 4!
Matt Boyland here with a look at your TNT headlines. The Central American country of Honduras has severed all ties with Taiwan, ending decades of engagement with the island as it moves to form relations with Beijing. Massive protests have erupted across Israel over the government's controversial push to overhaul the judicial system, and Germany was expected to grind to a halt on Monday as the country braced for its largest strike action in decades.
If you miss your favorite TNT radio show or interview, simply listen back when you want, wherever you want. Just visit episodes on the TNT Radio website. We're also on all major podcast platforms, including Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Podbean, iHeart, and TuneIn. Now there's no reason to miss out on anything on TNT Radio.
Well, Kim, you're just about to tell us what the key was for us moving forward in the West in this new world order, which will be basically controlled by Russia and China?
Yes, and I have reservations about that too. After all, the elite Rothschilds and the rest of them have used the Chinese communist model to basically have their new world order, with a crackdown of human rights and freedom. If you say something against the Chinese government, you're dead or in prison the rest of your life, or having your organs extracted for organ trafficking. That's why the key is going to be what happens after Ukraine and China and Russia emerge. They already have emerged, but what will happen with them having more power than the Western nations? What will happen? Now, are they truly what they talk about, where all nations, national sovereignty and security will be respected and all? It's easy to talk. And the thing that I was about to say is the key to the future is it cannot be the same as all of the rest of human history, which is same as the old boss. If they become, and let's face it, Russia and China have had horrible track records for human rights. So that's why I have reservation that they're going to be the good guys. I really don't know. It's going to be up to us. We, the people of the world, the citizenry of the world, must stand for the truth and go against any kind of oppression, be it from Russia or China or anybody else. So I'm not saying it's going to be a panacea once these two powers emerge and the global South and they rise up and everything is going to be hunky-dory. No, we have a real battle ahead. And if Putin turns out to be a bad guy and he was just talking a good hat while to gain more power, then the truth is going to be told. And then the people have to fight him too.
Joachim, is it possible for the West to reinvigorate itself morally? Because it seems to be a moral crisis in the West as much as anything.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility you see?
I do think that, yes. I believe that the majority of the people in the West are really not into the woke system, the brainwash system that has been going on. You know, everybody basically 40 and younger has been inculcated with all this Trojan horse green stuff and all this. You know, they're totally lame as far as, you know, and they have to be re-educated about reality. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, it'll be a different world for those of us in the West, because I think, yes, Western civilization, we had its run and it's going to end. But we are going to still play a part in the world in the future. And we have to make it the world that we want for a change. You know, we cannot have same as the old boss, you know, and if Xi and Putin turn out to be total tyrants, just like their predecessors of the West, you know, then, you know, we have to root out the cause. And the cause is this banking structure that has had, through the usury system, debtor system, they've had control of the world population. And we have to get rid of all those institutions. And in this breakdown with this emerging multipolar world crisis, we're going to have to find other ways where all people can flourish, and we get rid of racism and hatred and all the rest of the ills that have kept us back through the divide and conquer by the elite.
But how do you do that when you say these governments, this Chinese government and the Russian government, they're nationalist in their understanding, aren't they? It's all about ultimately that they want to care for their people, the primacy, at least, of their people above everybody else. What does that mean for us in the West if we've lost our own power structure?
Well, I think we have to wait and see as far as whether Putin and Xi will welcome the emerging powers of the West that hopefully will be of a whole different mindset, more spiritually advanced, and we can all be partners in the world together in a peaceful world. I mean, you know, that sounds kind of almost far-fetched for where we're at right now, because evil rules. Yeah. But it is possible for us to transform on a very deep level. It is quite possible.
How do you do that in a multicultural West? How do you be spiritually advanced when there's so many different forms of spirituality that people would want to hang on to as in primacy of that particular faith?
We just share similar values, like loving all living energies as part of the greater whole, like valuing truth and honesty and integrity for a change, rather than the dog-eat-dog, cutthroat, competitive world of anything goes as long as you're on top, you know. A fundamental change in the value system, where obviously national sovereignty, national security, equality as far as human rights go around the world, and it's a matter of I don't believe in any kind of global organization, one world government, United Nations, all these kind of one world government models. No, we can't have that. We need to have individual national sovereignty be respected, whether you're a big country with a lot of power or a little country with much less power. All of it has to be respected. And this might take a whole re-education process for the entire world, perhaps. But I also believe
that's not how power operates, though, is it? Ultimately, power just doesn't operate.
Well, it hasn't.
That way
History
in reality.
Shows us history shows us it hasn't. But there are people who have a spiritual mindset that can influence other people. We have a potential, and if we put emerging minds and intellects in there that actually care about other people and do what's right by humanity, and where we evolve, the whole energy of our planet evolves to a higher plane. This is possible, and I am a diehard idealist that That is the only way forward. If we hold on to the old way, that's self-destruction. Our system was never sustainable, nor was it even designed to be sustainable. It was always...
Well, no system is, ultimately, is there? No system is sustainable. It all has weaknesses eventually. And that's what's happened to the Western system.
Yeah. I'm saying we have to break the history of same as the old boss. And it means that there's a evolution of the human spirit and mind and spirituality that transcends all the ills of the past and moves forward under basically God's natural law. However you define it according to religion or whatever, everything's individual rights of how you want to believe.
You said before there was like a globalist elite that would face trial and punishment. And leave it aside for once. I mean, how would they even face trial unless they face trial according to Xi Jinping's military tribunal or Vladimir Putin's? Because without someone to enforce that trial, they won't face trial ultimately, will they? And who are these globalist elites? So you say Bill Gates, etc. What about local functionaries that have certainly enforced this COVID narrative? They're not in on it, are they? But they have been responsible for so many of its harms.
They're the useful idiots, and including all the national leaders, all the groomed Klaus Schwab club. They all got to go. They're useless idiots. They serve their purpose for the elite, but now there's a whole new movement that rejects them and the puppet masters behind them. So, it's not an easy task ahead. It's the biggest challenge that humanity's ever had, because we do not want a repeat of the same psychopathic element to end up in power and to do the rest of the exploitation and war and all the rest. We must make fundamental changes and build our institutional structures from the ground level up. It requires the ultimate transformation that is the greatest challenge that humanity in the whole history of humankind has ever faced. But we just stand up with the right values. That's what has to be the foundation.
Joachim Hagopian, thanks so much for joining me on the Damien Richardson Show.
Thank you.
You're listening to TNT Radio.
Give me a minute with TNT Radio's Steve Malzberg.
So I'm cruising the internet, and while on the Fox News site, I come across this headline. Trad wives push back against critics who say their viral homemaking lifestyle is alarming and creepy. So my first step was to find out what a trad wife is. According to the piece, it's a relatively new term for traditional wives. Trad wives are women who honor femininity, care for their husbands, their children, and family, and value the state of their home more than they do salary, yet they're not subservient. So at first you may ask yourself, how can anyone find that to be alarming or creepy? I mean, that's how it was when I was growing up in the U.S., and I'll tell you what, family life was far superior to what we have today, and kids had the security of a two-parent upbringing with a mom who was always there. Single-parent moms weren't lining up at 8 a.m. to dump their 3-month-old at daycare while on their way to work. The social media hashtag TradWife received millions of impressions, and guess what? 92% of searchers had a negative view of trad wives, which speaks to just how far the fabric of the family has fallen and how much danger our kids are in. Thanks for giving me a minute. I'm Steve Malzberg for TNT Radio.